He ended his talk with a slide of a black disc zipping off into outer space. And he ended it with these words: "We now have the technology to take ET home."
Before he died, the former director of Lockheed Martin's legendary Skunk Works let slip a sentence that should never have left his mouth. "We already have the technology to take ET home." For years, it sounded like a rumor, a misunderstood quote, the kind of thing conspiracy circles cling to. But then that line resurfaced on the Joe Rogan Experience.
Possibility of alien life in the universe, although we've never experienced it, seems rational.
And his reaction said what millions were suddenly thinking. If he wasn't exaggerating, then alien technology isn't a future possibility, it's already here, and someone has been hiding it. Ben Rich, engineer, innovator, and the mystery of his final remark. In the summer of 1972, Ben Rich stood outside the office of Clarence Kelly Johnson, knowing the conversation ahead could change his future. Rich had worked under Johnson at Lockheed Martin's Skunk Works for nearly 2 decades, and the two had formed a close mentor-protege relationship. Rich had helped solve propulsion challenges on aircraft such as the F-104 Interceptor and the SR-71 Blackbird, while Johnson prepared him for greater responsibility by involving him in high-level defense meetings. That day, Rich intended to tell Johnson that he had received a job offer from another aerospace company. After hearing him out, Johnson revealed that he planned to retire in 3 years and would personally recommend Rich as his successor. Rich stayed, and when Johnson stepped down, he kept his promise. Rich became the next director, taking on one of the most important engineering roles in aviation history. Over the following years, Rich helped shape some of the most advanced aircraft ever created. Often called the father of stealth technology, he oversaw the development of the F-117 Nighthawk, the first operational stealth aircraft. He also played key roles in earlier programs, including the U-2 reconnaissance plane and the SR-71 Blackbird. These aircraft pushed the limits of speed, altitude, and innovation during the Cold War and cemented Rich's reputation as one of the most influential engineers of the 20th century. Colleagues described him as sharp, humorous, and unusually candid for someone involved in highly classified work. Rich earned engineering degrees from the University of California, Berkeley, and the University of Michigan, and his technical instincts were widely regarded as exceptional. Even after retirement, he remained a respected figure in aerospace journalism and engineering circles. As Rich neared the end of his life in 1995, several remarks attributed to him began to attract attention. During a 1993 lecture at the University of California in Los Angeles, attendees recalled that he ended his presentation with a surprising statement: "We already have the technology to take ET home." Some believed he was joking, while others suspected he was hinting at classified capabilities far beyond what had been publicly acknowledged. After his death, additional accounts appeared suggesting that Rich believed certain breakthroughs were being kept from the public. These stories referenced advanced propulsion concepts or unusual materials allegedly studied within restricted programs. Supporters pointed to Rich's long career in deeply classified environments, as well as comments shared by aerospace historian James Goodall, who said Rich occasionally suggested that hidden capabilities were far more advanced than the public realized. Public curiosity increased when, in 2021, former Senator Harry Reid stated that he believed some defense contractors might possess materials connected to unidentified aerial phenomena. His remarks echoed long-standing rumors that had circulated around Rich's work. Skeptics argued that many statements attributed to Rich were second-hand and lacked documentation. His memoir, written with Leo Llanos, discussed only confirmed aircraft programs and made no mention of extraterrestrial materials or exotic propulsion. Today, Ben Rich's legacy rests on 2 foundations. One is well documented: his leadership in developing some of the most advanced aircraft in history. The other is a lingering question sparked by his final remarks and the stories that followed. Whether he was speaking literally, metaphorically, or simply making an offhand comment remains unknown. What is certain is that his words continue to fuel debate about the true limits of human technology and what may exist behind classified doors. the secrecy behind his work, and why many believe non-human technology could be hidden inside black programs. Ben Rich spent his entire career inside a world the public was never allowed to see. His role at Lockheed Martin's Skunk Works placed him at the center of the most classified aerospace projects in United States history. These were not ordinary engineering assignments. They were programs sealed behind layers of clearance, compartmentalization, and strict need-to-know rules. Even people working inside the same building often had no idea what the team next door was creating. This extreme secrecy is the main reason many believe Skunk Works could hide technology far beyond what has been publicly admitted. Throughout Rich's leadership, Skunk Works produced aircraft that seemed to leap ahead of the known limits of physics. The U-2 could fly higher than almost any aircraft on Earth. The SR-71 outran missiles in the 1960s, when most countries had barely entered the jet age. The F-117 was invisible to radar before radar stealth was even understood by the public. Each time a new Skunk Works project became public, it appeared to skip an entire generation of development. There were no prototypes shown, no gradual evolutions, just sudden breakthroughs that looked like science fiction. This pattern is what fuels speculation. If these were the projects they eventually revealed, what remained hidden? Black programs are designed specifically to shield sensitive technology from oversight. Budgets are buried in unrelated documents. Research is split into compartments so small that no one, not even the engineers, can see the full picture. This structure allows technologies to exist for decades without public trace. Former defense officials have admitted that even they were kept out of certain programs, and that private contractors often hold materials and research that government agencies cannot directly access. This is where theories of non-human technology enter the conversation. Former Senator Harry Reid publicly stated that he believed private defense contractors may possess materials of unknown origin. Aerospace insiders have quietly mentioned metals and components that could not be cut, melted, or reverse engineered with normal methods. Others have described propulsion concepts that seem to appear without a clear scientific trail, as if they were derived from something previously recovered or observed. The combination of sudden technological leaps, deeply compartmentalized research, and strict secrecy creates a believable environment where extraordinary technology, human or otherwise, could remain hidden. And Ben Rich was one of the few people who stood close enough to know exactly what was being kept there. The quiet mysteries behind advanced technology. Several former engineers associated with Skunk Works have occasionally suggested that not all major technological developments originated solely from internal research. Some individuals, often speaking anonymously, claimed that they had handled unusual materials that did not react according to known scientific principles. Others stated that certain propulsion studies were halted not because they failed, but because they produced results considered too advanced for public deployment. These projects fall under what the United States government refers to as special access programs. Such programs are highly compartmentalized and often allow only a small number of individuals to access the full scope of their objectives. Investigative journalists and former defense officials have stated that many of these programs are conducted jointly with private aerospace contractors, reinforcing a multi-layered system of security that restricts the flow of information even within government itself. Engineers who worked with Rich have also discussed technological leaps that seemed to emerge without the typical progression of incremental development. Advances in propulsion, materials science, and aircraft signatures occasionally appeared to bypass several stages of research more commonly seen in unclassified projects. Official explanations attributed these achievements to internal innovation. However, privately, some individuals suggested the possibility of external sources of inspiration, though they offered no concrete evidence. During the period from the 1950s through the 1980s, when Skunk Works was at the height of its activity, the United States government recorded numerous reports of unidentified aerial phenomena. Many of these sightings occurred in regions associated with the testing of experimental aircraft. While a number of the reports were later attributed to platforms such as the U-2 or the SR-71, others described aircraft with triangular shapes or silent flight characteristics that resembled design elements later seen in known Skunk Works programs. Lockheed Martin has consistently attributed its advancements to the ingenuity of its engineers and to decades of dedicated research. Official statements have never addressed allegations involving extraterrestrial materials. Former employees typically decline interviews regarding sensitive projects, often citing national security obligations. Others simply state that they encountered technologies that seemed ahead of their time but offer no further explanation. Whether these incidents represent misidentifications or early classified testing remains uncertain. Joe Rogan and the legacy of Ben Rich's final statement. Ben Rich's alleged final statements remained a niche topic for years, discussed mostly among aviation historians, engineers, and enthusiasts. That changed when the story reached the Joe Rogan Experience, one of the most widely viewed platforms for conversations about science, technology, and unexplained phenomena. Rogan's reaction introduced the subject to a global audience and reignited public debate. During the episode, Rogan listened as his guest described Rich's claim that highly advanced propulsion systems, far beyond publicly known technology, already existed within classified programs. Rogan's response was immediate and unfiltered. He leaned back, visibly unsettled, and said, "If that is true, everything changes." It was not an attempt to sensationalize the topic. Instead, it reflected the seriousness of the source. Rich was not a fringe theorist or an unreliable storyteller. He was one of the most accomplished aerospace engineers of the 20th century, a man involved in the creation of some of the most sophisticated aircraft ever built. Careful consideration. He questioned what Rich might have been referring to, whether interstellar travel, unconventional propulsion concepts, or classified research that had never been made public. The ambiguity of Rich's remark, combined with his lifetime of access to restricted programs, created what Rogan described as a space for legitimate inquiry. If Rich's comment was accurate, Rogan argued, it would force the public to reevaluate the Rogan emphasized that any technical claim from someone with Rich's background deserved limits of human technological progress. He also reflected on the long history of secrecy within advanced aerospace development. Lockheed Martin has repeatedly revealed aircraft that seemed decades ahead of their time. The SR-71 Blackbird outran every missile that tried to intercept it. The F-117 Nighthawk introduced stealth capabilities that transformed modern warfare. The U-2 reconnaissance aircraft reached altitudes once thought impossible. All of these achievements were developed in deep secrecy before eventually becoming public knowledge. Because so many breakthroughs were hidden for years, Rogan suggested that even more advanced classified technologies could exist today without public awareness. Many sightings of unidentified aerial phenomena, he noted, might represent early tests of classified aircraft rather than extraterrestrial craft. Secrecy in this context does not automatically imply alien involvement. It may simply reflect the speed at which military aviation evolves behind closed doors. Rogan's guest agreed, pointing out that each generation tends to dismiss radical new technologies until they are formally revealed, at which point they quickly become accepted as normal. This pattern, the guest argued, is precisely why Rich's statement about having the technology to take ET home continues to resonate. Even if the remark was metaphorical, it suggests capabilities far beyond current public expectations. Many viewers recognized in Rogan's reaction their own uncertainty, caught between skepticism and the realization that a figure with Rich's experience would not casually make a statement of such magnitude. Jim Goodall and the final conversations with Ben Rich. Aviation historian Jim Goodall, who maintained a long friendship with Ben Rich, provides some of the most detailed first-hand accounts of Rich's private remarks. According to Goodall, he called Rich at the University of Southern California Medical Center shortly before Rich passed away. Their conversation lasted roughly 45 minutes, during which they discussed former colleagues, past projects, and shared memories. At the end of their call, Rich delivered a statement that Goodall never forgot. He said, "Jim, we have things out in the desert that are 50 years beyond what you can comprehend." Goodall noted that Rich fully understood the extent of his technical background, which made the comment even more striking. Rich delivered the statement without humor or ambiguity. Rich then added that if anyone had seen films such as Star Trek or Star Wars, Skunk Works had already achieved similar capabilities or had chosen not to pursue certain technologies for reasons he did not explain. Shortly after that phone call, Goodall received a flyer announcing a lecture Rich would be delivering at the University of California in Los Angeles School of Engineering. Goodall attended the event alongside Tom Keller, another graduate of the same engineering program. Approximately 200 engineers filled the auditorium. Rich delivered a comprehensive review of his 4 decades at Skunk Works, describing the development of the U-2 reconnaissance aircraft, the SR-71 Blackbird, and the F-117 stealth aircraft. He briefly mentioned the rumored Aurora program but offered no confirmation. As the presentation drew toward its conclusion, Rich revisited an idea he had hinted at before. He displayed a slide showing a black disk rising toward space and repeated the same striking line he had shared on other occasions. He told the audience, "We have the technology to take ET home." While most attendees reacted with laughter, Goodall and Keller remained quiet, convinced the remark carried far more weight than the casual response in the room suggested. After the presentation, roughly 25 attendees gathered around Rich with follow-up questions. One engineer asked whether interstellar travel was truly possible. Another immediately responded that even if it were, such a journey would take an incomprehensibly long time using known physics. Rich disagreed. "No, it will not," he said. "There is an error in the equations. We discovered the error, and now we know how to correct it." He offered no further explanation. Instead, he glanced at his watch, signaled that he was out of time, and ended the discussion. Rich's remark left several listeners stunned. By claiming there was an error in the equations, he appeared to be suggesting that mainstream physics had overlooked a fundamental principle, one that Skunk Works or related classified programs had already resolved. To Goodall and others who followed his work closely, the implication was unmistakable. Rich believed, or wanted his audience to believe, that propulsion systems far more advanced than anything publicly acknowledged were not theoretical. They already existed, hidden behind layers of secrecy. Outside the building, attendee John Harzan approached Rich as he walked toward his car and asked him to elaborate on the propulsion system he had implied during the lecture. Rich responded with a single question: "How does ESP work?" Harzan replied, "All points in space and time are connected." Rich nodded. "That is how it works." He then entered his vehicle and left without providing further explanation. Rich's cryptic remarks suggested a form of propulsion that did not rely on traditional engines or even exotic high-speed concepts, but on a deeper manipulation of space and time itself. By invoking ESP, a phenomenon often associated with instantaneous connection, Rich appeared to be implying a technology capable of linking distant points directly, bypassing the long travel times dictated by conventional physics. To Harzan, and to others who would later analyze the encounter, this hinted at a system closer to point-to-point transit through space-time than anything resembling rocket or jet propulsion. Experts who have studied Rich's statements offer several interpretations. Some aerospace historians argue that Rich may have been speaking metaphorically, referencing theoretical models in advanced physics that treat space-time as a fabric that can be bent or connected rather than traversed. Physicists who specialize in speculative propulsion note that his analogy aligns loosely with concepts such as quantum entanglement, wormholes, or non-local connections, ideas that remain unproven but theoretically allow instantaneous or near-instantaneous movement. Others who study classified black-budget aerospace work believe Rich may have been leaving a deliberate clue, that certain classified programs had identified ways to exploit space-time geometry, warp field effects, or other unconventional energy phenomena. While no confirmation has ever surfaced, the exchange remains one of the most debated and intriguing elements of Rich's final public interactions. Goodall later referenced a slide deck reportedly provided through contacts at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base. According to him, the presentation closely matched the one delivered at the University of California in Los Angeles and included similar claims. In one version, Rich stated that the United States Air Force had recently awarded Skunk Works a contract to take ET back home. The final slide, as Goodall described, depicted a flying disc tilted at approximately 45 degrees as if departing from the frame. Whether Ben Rich intended these statements literally, metaphorically, or symbolically remains an unresolved question. Goodall believed that Rich may have been offering a deliberate hint, a final message intended to suggest that major propulsion breakthroughs had already been achieved under classified programs. However, as Goodall acknowledged, the full truth may never be known. The claims, the evidence, and the emerging pattern. Across several decades, scattered documents, insider testimony, and statements from former officials have hinted at the existence of advanced propulsion research predating public acknowledgement. This conversation gained renewed attention in the year 2021 when former United States Senator Harry Reid stated that Lockheed Martin might possess physical materials associated with unidentified aerial phenomena. Reid, who oversaw national defense budgets for many years, was considered one of the most informed political figures ever to address the subject. His comments added legitimacy to long-standing rumors. When placed alongside Ben Rich's alleged remarks, a consistent pattern becomes apparent. First, an aerospace director with lifelong access to classified research hinted that the public is far behind the classified world. Second, government officials with oversight authority have suggested that unusual materials may be stored within contractor facilities. Third, the United States has repeatedly unveiled aircraft that appear to leap far beyond the technological capabilities expected during their era. The U-2, the SR-71, and the F-117 each emerged suddenly after long periods of secrecy, demonstrating performance characteristics that defied conventional scientific understanding. Joe Rogan highlighted this issue in a discussion with physicist Brian Cox. Rogan suggested that if advanced propulsion systems existed within classified programs, most engineers contributing to the projects would not know the final purpose of their components. Cox agreed, noting that the extreme compartmentalization within classified research prevents any individual from seeing the entire system. This structure is precisely what makes Ben Rich's remarks so compelling. His statements did not emerge as official disclosures. They came from a man near the end of his life, offering what may have been a guarded truth that continues to unsettle scientists, policymakers, and the general public. What lies beyond public knowledge? If the aircraft Ben Rich hinted at truly exists, a craft capable of extraordinary speeds, unconventional propulsion, or movements that defy known aerodynamics, the implications are profound and far-reaching. First, such technology would indicate that the publicly acknowledged limits of physics may not represent the true boundaries of human capability. This would mean that scientific progress, at least in certain classified domains, is unfolding decades ahead of what the public or even most experts believe possible. The existence of these technologies would challenge our assumptions about energy, propulsion, and humanity's ability to navigate the larger universe. It would also raise unsettling questions about transparency and power. If such craft exist entirely outside public oversight, then the capabilities they embody, whether for reconnaissance, defense, or other purposes, are controlled by a very small number of decision-makers. This concentration of technological advantage could reshape global power dynamics in ways the public cannot see or influence. There are darker implications. Technologies capable of extreme maneuverability or near-silent instantaneous movement could be deployed without detection, accountability, or public knowledge. Their existence would suggest a world where surveillance, warfare, or strategic influence might occur far beyond the boundaries of democratic oversight. It would also imply that governments may possess tools that could fundamentally alter geopolitical stability, but choose to withhold them from public discourse. Finally, if these capabilities are real, they suggest that humanity may be standing at the edge of a technological frontier that only a select few have glimpsed. Whether this frontier represents an opportunity for advancement or a potential risk that lies hidden in secrecy remains one of the most consequential unanswered questions of our time. What if one of the most trusted aerospace engineers in history quietly revealed that the future has already arrived? What if the technology we dream about in science fiction is not only real, but hidden in the deserts of America, locked behind classified doors? We uncover the final whispers of Ben Rich, the former head of Skunk Works, and explore why Joe Rogan believes his last words could rewrite everything we think we know about advanced technology. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to this channel.